It's just me and you today, Jay.
Ooh, that sounds daunting without Ryan and Caleb here, but
Or
they
good
better make
time.
it.
It just kind of depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, that's true. They'll make up for it next week. They'll have 2 weeks worth of things that they're of interest to them. We're going to start out this week with Major League Baseball. Back on our six pack, um, Diamondbacks pitcher Jordan Montgomery. He fired super agent Scott Boras. He was one of the four Boras clients. He did not get really great deals for any of the four Boras clients this time. So, what are you thinking about that, Julie?
Well, maybe maybe his time is, I think we all have a window, and maybe his window is closing, because the Boris four, as we know, are Cody Bellinger, Blake Snell, and Matt Chapman, and it seems like their last contracts weren't ideal. So, which one's leaving next? And is he just consistently missing the mark, or is it a tougher market out there? Are things changing? Hard to say, but it'll be interesting to see if the other three follow him on leaving. Although I did hear that he would have quite a few more free agents coming up to sort of like compensate for the four, but so maybe he'll just kind of go more into the background. What do you think?
I'm agreeing with you. I mean, time passes us all by in a way, but also the fact that he had been so controlling in different parts of his career that there was always a show business saying about that you meet the same people on the way down as you meet on the way up. And it seemed like he had a lot of advice for people that was really out of his lane, especially as far as team owners and team general managers. And it seems like if you start to slip in your game a little bit when you're out there criticizing everyone else, that you're the first one that they really point at, and they're happy to see it for some of them.
Stop talking about me, Jay. I hear that. I totally hear that. And I think what's the sportscaster Undisputed who's got like 1,000 views on YouTube now with every podcast that he does? Skip Bayless. Yeah, but
Bayless, yes.
now that Shannon Sharp left, he's like talking to the air, and it kind of feels like that a little bit. Like you had a whole lot to say about everybody, but now like that the guy who helped make your team or your show is gone. Like you kind of you got egg on your face. So we might have a lot of eggs on faces this week, and it seems like Boris is another one of those.
Yeah. But let me move on to the next topic, which is Chicago White Sox are putting Yoan Moncada on the injured list with the left abductor strain. He's out for 3 weeks, but it could be he's out for 3 months, but it could be up to 6 months with an abductor strain. And
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by this. I'm not. I haven't been in the locker room as a. My experience is mostly with epidemiology as stats than
okay.
actual hands-on. Thank God. Um, and so I looked into this, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I realize as an athlete and with age and possibly past injuries that things can take longer, possibly. But I was a
Mm-hmm.
little surprised because there's three grades for an abductor strain. And grade one takes a couple weeks, grade two takes a couple weeks,
Okay.
and then grade three can take 3 to 4 months. And so I was really surprised by the hearing about 6 months because 4 months is really the upper end.
Hmm.
And so kind of curious what that means about, uh, like, is there more going on in there, or does he just need a break, or is he just really hard on his body and then, he just needs a little bit more time. I don't know, but that was on the upper side, so it'll be interesting to see. I know he's not elderly, but he's not a spring chicken either, so I don't know if things are starting to catch up with him. So there you go, a little injury note there.
Okay.
We'll keep an eye on him, but
Okay.
Usually players are really fast to come back, not the other way. Not that I
Okay.
support coming back too soon, but yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Julie. Um, as far as other injury news, Rangers pitcher Max Scherzer is says he's ahead of schedule after he had his back surgery 4 months ago. Do you think that that's a good news for the defending champ Rangers?
Could be because I also looked into this and it's got some Aaron Rodgers energy to it because he had a herniated disc
Mm-hmm.
and the typical recovery for an athlete is 5 to 6 months. I don't really think that you want to be the person that's running out there a month or two early.
Yeah.
Uh and he's like I forget how old Max Scherzer is, but he's in his 30s. So I don't think you really want to be that guy. But so I think it could be good news if he doesn't have an issue, but he could because they have a range for recovery for a reason, and they
Mm-hmm.
typically frown upon not listening to those because they're really well established. So
Okay.
I was kind of taken aback by that, but I guess we'll see. But if he's out there holding his back after a couple, rounds, we'll know something happened. So
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Last thing, rounding up on the baseball, um, whether or not you think Angel Hernandez is the worst MLB umpire of all time.
well, I don't really keep up too much with the worst or least worst umpires because they're it's hard for I don't look at popularity contests, because it's just not going to be a place where you're going to get all the accolades you might deserve.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hearing from America that they may be perceiving him in this way. Um, and so it's like, is he making his final call or what? Because last night, or I guess that would probably be Friday at this at the Texas Astros game, he had Rangers broadcasters literally screaming, and I don't think that that's norm and not just screaming once, screaming multiple times. Um, so there, apparently he called 3 pitches that he called them all strikes when they all look like balls to everyone. So things escalated after the second and really went ham at the third. All
Mm-hmm.
bases loaded. Like it was a tense moment. And so most or all of us feel like he was calling things the wrong way, and so I'm surprised there wasn't a riot, but we weren't far from it. And so to get it 3 times in a row for the same guy, it'll be interesting to see if this is going to be the nail in the coffin for Angel Hernandez's career or not.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to move on now to basketball. Um, for the NBA, the T Wolves get Carl Anthony Towns back this week. He missed the last month with the torn meniscus in his left knee, and the Wolves are 1 game back of 1 seed in the West as of Friday, and that's going to be all decided today. The Nuggets have Memphis playing
Mm,
today, and they are playing Memphis with 13 players on the injury report.
wow.
They have two who are on the lowest level of NBA contract, and then the other 6 they're playing are either G League or on 10-day contracts.
Sounds like it's going to be great.
52 starting lineups in 82 games. And so the Nuggets are 12.5 point favorites. They'd probably put Timberwolves at the number 2 seed. But the last part of the season, they've been without Carl Anthony Towns, and they've done great. If you look at an injury, what that means is, well, who do the additional shots go to?
Mm.
And the additional shots are like either dunks by Gobert or they're handing the ball out to Anthony Edwards, who's a really, really good basketball player.
Yeah, we've been talking about him quite a bit in the true crime segment in case anybody wants to catch him there. He does good things on the court. Yep.
He does good things on the court. And anyway, so that when Cat comes back, when Carl Anthony Towns comes back, it'll be interesting to see how they can fit him back into the offense. and the defense at this late of a point in the season, not like even a week or two to adjust. They'll be coming right back into,
Mm,
and even if they're at the number two, uh, they'll probably be playing. I mean, there's about a half dozen different scenarios, but they'll probably be playing um, maybe the Lakers or maybe Golden State. And so there's no time really to adjust. I mean, these are veterans, but they had a lot of injuries and regular season kind of wasn't the best. But I really don't want to face Steph or LeBron in the first round of the playoffs,
no.
especially when I'm trying to put things back together with Carl Anthony Towns. So that would be interesting to watch them both today and also in the first game or two back. So
Interesting or just like
what
watching
what are you thinking about with Cat?
well, uh he gets a star from me from the injury angle because his recovery time is actually normal. So
Okay,
not too fast, not too slow. So it
okay,
seems like things are doing well on that end. So it's good to see because as we discussed in baseball, they're having a little trouble with that. So it seems like
okay,
with Towns, they he's the injury isn't too bad and he's not coming back too soon. So
okay. The next thing we're looking at is UConn won the NCAA
mm,
15 point win over Purdue. Uh, two national championships in a row. First time anyone's done it in 20 years almost.
yeah,
So
so I saw that Don Hurley, the head coach, is committed to staying with the Huskies and he says it'll be the only college program he'll ever coach. So he seems real dedicated to the team. And he's already
wow,
mapping out 2024 and 2025 roster moves. So talk about not taking a day off, but
yeah.
seems like they're ready to go for another round.
Yeah, well, no one has done this in years because he had a different roster. Billy Donovan, back the last time this was done um, with Florida, they had returning seniors in
Mm,
Joakim Noah and Al Horford. So they were ready to go, and so he
yeah.
returned, I believe, all five starters that year. And so the fact that they could repeat was very
Okay.
admirable, but not crazy, as opposed to they brought two of their top six scorers, I think, for Connecticut. They brought some of their core back, but a lot of the people left for the NBA and were good, you know,
Yeah.
going in. So it was very great for the coach. And Purdue, um, I mean, even though they didn't win, the big center really helped his draft stock over the whole NCAA tournament, and most of the mocks have him going, if not top 10, certainly around the tail end of the lottery. And that wasn't projected because, I mean, there's really no comps for him,
Mm,
especially U.S. comps in the last 5 or 10 years for
yeah.
someone that tall. But
Right. Well, if you can create magic with anybody, Hurley's got a gold star for me in my book.
yeah, he does. Um, Next thing, South Carolina ends the Caitlin Clark experience. Once again, she falls just short of getting the national championship, but she still kind of looked like the best player on the court, even with Paige Brookers out there. So, what were your impressions of the game?
Yeah. Well, she's amazing. Um, and I'm impressed by what she is doing for female sports, but as a female athlete in high school, a very go for a very short period of time, far too long, even uh know firsthand, as I was a golfer, believe it or not, that our practices were underappreciated, underrepresented. Nobody cared about how we did. They even had male only event practice days, so we weren't even allowed to go on the green during those days at the club that we practiced at. So that was great.
Wow.
So I think my experience is certainly not exclusive to me. So I think, women's sports people don't care and they're loud with it. Um, Particularly when it comes with the talents that come from African American women like Angela Reese, who often gets really even overlooked in this situation. And I think it speaks to the overall attitude towards women in sports and in just in American culture in general. So let me raise that feminist flag here and say, like, thanks for finally paying attention, but we've been here. Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, so just say it with your chest what you actually mean when you don't pay attention to us instead of just pretending like it's because of the league. That's all I gotta say about that.
Okay. Okay. Uh, let's add in
Smart,
one.
Jay. See, Jay's been around the block, so he knows not to play when I get into that.
Moving on.
Moving on. Yeah.
Moving on. One last thing on basketball before we move to the NFL. The Mark Pope hire. Let me
Mm,
have you lead with what you think about that at Kentucky.
yeah. You graced us with some of his social media presence, which we will be inserting here.
I'm gonna get a scholarship to King's College. I probably shouldn't brag, but dag, I'm amazed and astonished. The problem is I got a lot of brains but no polish. I gotta holler just to be heard with every word I try. It's impossible for me to describe how much I love this university, my teammates, and you fans. But I'm gonna try. C-A-T-S!
In the video. And I'm annoyed. Like, like some people are just real characters and some
Mhm.
don't just I just can't jive with. And it seems like we have found another case. Sir, you are not Superman. And I know like people try to stay relevant with like the times and social media and young people and everything, but just like maybe don't.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of the clips, and um, I mean, it's always a dichotomy. Okay, what makes you popular with the players, and what makes you popular with the people with the money, which are the boosters, and you have to work it both ways. And so I can understand. Uh, he can be given a pass for some of the things since he's a Kentucky graduate and played with a really good Kentucky team.
Is that how that
Um,
works?
for returning alums are always given a little bit more leeway for a college coach. Hey, I'm in Memphis, so we have Penny Hardaway, who's doing a great job. But even the most ardent Penny lovers are not going to say he hasn't been giving a lot more leeway on things because he was an incredible athlete. And also, I mean, he literally had given millions to the Tiger program before he ever came back to coach it. He's probably given more money to the Tiger program than he's taken back out of it, which is unusual. But Mark Pope comes from BYU, where he had 5 years, and to let go of Cal because he had 1 year, one win in 5 years at Kentucky, to bring in a guy that literally has zero NCAA wins this last 5 years is pretty hilarious. But I mean, Cal left on his own. He went to the University of Arkansas, where he had a good press conference, but he did not call the hogs. So that was a little controversial. He was going to learn that he didn't want to embarrass himself the first time. So, but
Yeah, yeah, they
that
probably took some advice from the NFL with their deciding who to coach with them there.
okay. But anyway, now we're moving to the NFL. Um, OJ Simpson passes away at 76 years old due to prostate cancer.
Yeah, did you even know he had prostate cancer?
I don't believe that it was widely reported,
Yeah.
if at all. Yes.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. I seen a Reddit post about it 2 months ago, but you know how that goes.
Yeah,
Uh,
that could be rumor. Yes.
yeah, so I was like so somebody thought they knew, but like cuz I was like I missed the whole like we're losing like his like I mean, when you're an NFL player, like longevity is not a thing in
Right.
general, so like I guess it was always borrowed time, but yeah, I was taken aback by that. And I'm gonna take the time to plug my fork bar article. OJ, he didn't. It's a great one. So definitely take a look at that. I talked about some of the scandalous hot gossips coming out after he passed away. About what may or may not have gone down at USC, and so I'm strongly looking forward to hearing what else comes out because it can sometimes when people pass away, there's an opportunity for some truth to come out that didn't when they were still around. And so,
Mhm.
knowing the moral character that we're dealing with here, it would not surprise me if there was some more stuff that came out. And I think USC was a great start.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll just say, so when some people pass away, it can be kind of a conflicting thing. Not that I have any experience with this, like in my entire family, but sometimes, people can be very multidimensional, and so
Mhm.
it can lead you with some confusing. It can lead you with some confusing feelings at the tail end when you're trying to process. And I'm
Mhm.
finding that that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is like just kind of not sure how to feel, and that is okay. Um, and so I think when somebody is a lot of different things at once, that can be kind of the norm. I know a lot of people have sort of expressed that same sentiment, like Vinnie Politan, the
Yeah.
king of I what is it? Which one does he do? Court TV? Yeah. And
Okay.
so I will say that I appreciate that he was basically the creator of the intersection between true crime and sports that has allowed me to do a lot of the work that I do. When talking about the intersection between those two things, without him, that would have been a lot different. Yeah, yeah, and, a lot of things to a lot of people. I remember my mom was like, "He's the guy from Hertz," and so I guess that's the non-sports white woman perspective on how they remembered who he was. So if they were born, if they were, Gen X or older, not gonna, call my mom out on that, but, and so I know it was really hard for a lot of people. So, lots to be discussed there. I think it is totally fine to talk about his career. Heisman. I even did a whole article about the fact that he was born with, I believe, rickets. And so the fact,
Hmm.
and he wasn't young as we know. And so the fact that he was able to, with a disease that chronically affected African American children, particularly those who did not have appropriate access to healthcare, like in his own scenario, um, being able to come up from that is no joke. And
Mhm.
so I did write an article about that. You can find that in OJ He Didn't. And so
Mhm.
like, that's a really interesting part. We are all multidimensional. And
Okay.
so we can talk about all those things, Heisman, NFL, Football Hall of Fame, all those great things. And then we can also grieve with the Goldman and the Brown family and what feelings must be coming up for them again with this. We can do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I grew up even as not the youngest person to be hosting like a sports podcast, but he was even before my time. Okay, it was at the tail end of when I was paying attention, just beginning to pay attention to sports. But in the '80s, he was just a cultural icon.
yeah.
He was everywhere. People don't think about, I mean, like on Bob Hope shows and guest stars on things, and um probably 20, 30, maybe ex NFL players in movies and things like that. But what people keep glossing over, I mean, how many in comedies? He was in the Naked Gun movies. And I don't know of any other NFL star, maybe it missed it, that was ever in a comedy. He just did a little bit of
Yeah.
everything. He was everywhere. And so, like you said, the intersection of truth, to be in your 50s and to be just thrust into the middle of a crime and nobody having expected it, or one of the few sports icons for 30 years being with the spotlight on him, and nobody had said a false word against him ever. There'd never been a whisper. Okay.
There
And
should
there
have
were
been, according
and
to
and even
some of
pre-internet
the things
times
that are
there was,
coming out now.
yeah,
But yeah,
there were always people that had whispers, and you see a article in the back page of a paper, but this was somebody who was like very close to spotless in his persona, and then in his 50s for something this shocking and horrific to come out. It was like one of the first just blow your mind moments
hmm
of true crime ever. I mean, before you see somebody ramp up, you get like a DUI, you get in the car crash, one or two little things. But for somebody, they never had a bad word against him in 25 years of being in the spotlight from the time he was 19 at USC. Uh, and just, it was just amazing.
absolutely.
It was
Not
just an
only was
amazing
he
thing.
critical to sports and it affected sports fans, his trial was one of the most viewed in America ever. It was one of the biggest first trials to ever be put out there. Um, so like created a lot of that true crime aside from sports. And he also brought a lot of the race relations that was going on in LA to the forefront, even
You're
if it
right. The
didn't
timing.
have. And as a white woman, do I want for domestic violence against other women, especially when it could have been me? Not, I mean, obviously not, but like a family member or something like that.
I
Do I
understand.
want it to go overlooked? No,
No.
but I think I get the frustration in that one. We all know that one police officer, and I plead the fifth if they asked if he planted anything, which is like not ideal. And so I think he managed to bring everything to the forefront, everything for everybody. He did it all. And yeah, so I mean, don't care for the person and did a lot of bad things, but boy, did he ever become an icon of everything at all times. And like, whether he was the poster child we all wanted or needed, was like able to put so much out there. And it began more talks about DV with women and things like that because we heard the recordings of his ex-wife calling the cops. And so it sort of brought more awareness to that too. I mean, talk about really covering the bases.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Let me move on from OJ going to Tom Brady saying he's not opposed to coming out of retirement. I'll let you start off
Yeah.
on that. I
Yeah,
don't
I
have
have
many
4 words for
thoughts.
you, Brady. Sit your ass down.
Yeah, I don't want to even think about that. I mean, he did not tarnish his image. I mean, he had won the Super Bowl, but by the end of it, I was not worried about his stats so much as I was just worried about him getting hurt,
Yeah.
and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the main thing is he looks in great shape now, and he really should just take the win and move on, I think. But
Yeah, he's not the first
yeah,
Benjamin Button who's had a really hard time like hanging up the cleats. He's probably the oldest one. But he's not the first one. And sometimes you just gotta be like,
yeah,
just kind of, I don't know, play T-ball with your kids or something.
yeah,
Those kids you had.
yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds good. The next thing on the NFL, Jared Goff. The quarterback calls out the Detroit media for being
Mm.
negative and hopes that it's a new age with Detroit media going forward.
Yeah. So I have a few words for Goff. Not everybody is a Pollyanna because I feel like he is, or an individual with the incredible depth of character that Goff displays at all times, even in the toughest times. And those are like positives for me. Like the fact that he can get I still have not forgiven McVay for that all of that. But he when they went low, he went high. Okay, he made Obama proud because like this man is willing to always take the high road. And so I like that about him. But like chill. Okay, because most people are not Pollyanna. Most people are not always like shooting out rainbows out their backsides. Okay, so just like let it slide. And I said he should also try the New York media on for size if he wants to complain about Detroit.
I was going to say he came from LA media, right? But they don't pay any attention to hardly anything that's not Hollywood. I
Yeah.
think is the deal.
Yeah.
They're not harsh on their sports teams.
Yeah. So like don't
So
talk to me about Detroit, okay? Like come on. Like talk about a softball. So I'm like I know that you're a sensitive guy and I'm not saying that negatively because I am the first person to say wear pink fingernails and cry during games. Okay? So I'm not trying to come front for that. But just like don't like your expectations should be metered because not everybody is as good of a person as you are. And so like well that feels like a backsided compliment. It's not.
okay.
And yeah. So like we don't have any more time for this rumor, right? Like
Okay.
enough said, Jared.
No.
Sit down. You can sit down with Tom Brady, okay?
Okay. We're flipping over to the NHL for just a little bit. Sidney Crosby, Sid the Kid, 1,000 assists in his career and moves into 10th place all time in points, and keeps Pittsburgh in the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Is he as good as Mario Lemieux, who I even remember from way back when I was showing a child in
Yeah,
my rookie
no,
year?
no, he's not as good as Mario.
Yeah,
No
so why are
one
we
hardly
talking about
was.
you? Next. I'm like,
Okay. Let's see. Anaheim Ducks winger Jacob Silverberg. He announces he's going to retire at season's end after 12 years in the league, and he spent 10 in Anaheim. He returned to the uh, he returned to the rink last year after for 2 more years after some blood clots
hmm,
in his leg and hip surgery.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so thank you for your contributions, Jacob. We do appreciate it. I'm not an expert in sports injury. I think we know this, but I do know a little bit something about that, and I do know something about blood clots, for more reasons than that. And from what I can tell, you shouldn't be anywhere near the ice. If you have any predisposition, had them in the past, that's a no. It only takes about 2 seconds for them to break off, head towards your lungs, and boof. So, like, when they were so chill about that, I was like, okay, maybe not. And so, like, thank God. Some people, unlike other people we've discussed, have some wisdom about when it's time to call it quits. So again, thank you for your contributions to Anaheim, Jacob, and for making the right choice because ain't nobody want to see that go sideways on the ice.
let me ask you just one other question about that as far as hockey, which I don't know the type of hockey injuries, but is that a usual thing for like ice hockey players? I haven't heard of that.
Blood clots are not a usual thing for anybody under like 60 who
That's what
like
I was thinking.
and they're healthy, they're young, so like typically healthy and young. I mean, that's a yeah. Um that's relative, but it's very unusual and always a sign of concern. Always, always. There are in my family and others, there's some hereditary
Mm-hmm.
conditions that can make you more predisposed to blood clots. And so you need to start asking if somebody has them at that age, if there's something like that going on.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if he was, I don't know, 4 times the size that he was,
Mm-hmm.
then there might be like some, okay, there might be some other factors leading into things, but with his activity level, with his age and everything, no, that's typically a sign of more going on. That I would have to ask if there's maybe something
Okay.
genetic or yeah, definitely room for concern if it's coming up this young. And even if he wasn't an athlete, I would say he will probably be evaluated for the rest of his life for this, and it'll
Makes
be
sense.
more of a concern. And so no, and it is a big deal, even though they were acting like it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, oh, the other thing was what we were talking about last week with the Coyotes
Mm,
are officially going to be moving to Utah
yep.
for the next year from Phoenix. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was very sudden. To me, there was rumors and then it happened. Usually we have to wait a little longer for that. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that though because I feel like I'm always, you know, covering hot topics that I do, I feel like I'm always having to wait for something, and look, they didn't make Arizona let us know right away, so I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know that Utah had a strong, hockey audience, but I guess it makes more sense to me that they would over Arizona. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I'm just thinking, I don't know, maybe with the snow, with the mountains,
That
maybe
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, maybe there'd be more of an interest there for sure. So, here's hoping that it goes well for them. Arizona didn't seem to be it. They don't seem to have a strong sports vibe anyway for the I think the Cardinals fans might back us up on that. And so, yeah, I mean, not that I really knew that Utah did either, but I'm ready, and I think they deserve a change of
Yeah.
scenery.
Yeah, we were talking last week about the fact that without a new arena being built, that they were having to be in basically college size arenas, very small, and it's very the details are just starting to leak out. Okay, but they were saying that they're keeping the name, the Coyotes name will go with them to it's going to Utah with them. So they're buying the name, they're buying all the memorabilia, all that sort of thing. But that as part of the deal for the sale, that the Phoenix owner is getting the right in the next 5 years that if they can get an agreement in Phoenix or Tempe for a new stadium, that they would get the expansion rights.
Mm,
So I'm thinking that the NHL, especially the front office, sounds like they were very involved in this and that maybe they saw it as an embarrassment because it's very unusual to have like a promise to somebody that's
yeah.
selling a team. I don't remember seeing this. Maybe it was done before, but and so that makes more sense from what you were talking about. They got done very quickly. It's
Yeah.
probably like the NHL just took it as a black eye that the even with the smaller arenas, they weren't always selling it out, and
Yeah.
and the fact that there are people that are begging for, you know, a franchise, and that these people were just like, you know, dragging along, like you said, for literally years
Yeah.
trying to get the new arena, and they got turned down lately. So there's like, okay, we're just out. So
It
that's
was
the last.
embarrassing for everybody. And as
Yeah,
a fan, I wouldn't really want to go to a college to watch my
right,
hockey team play.
right.
That's
5,700
embarrassing
seed.
too.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the only latest update I had on it, which was really surprising to me. But with embarrassment, and when we're talking about embarrassment in pro sports, you're like, okay, I've seen embarrassments, but to be in a low grade arena for 2 years and
Mm,
you've not even got a prospect of having a new one built, the NHL had to step in. It sounded like they went pretty strong and said, okay, we promise you for 5 years, you got 5 years to get your seat straightened out. If you get straightened out, we'll give you the expansion team. If you can't, just go away,
yeah, right.
is what it
Yeah.
sounded like.
And we
So,
heard some scandal in the true crime segment about some Coyotes players. And
okay,
quite a few actually. A large segment of our NHL members of the roster there.
okay,
And so it seems like they were having trouble from all ends. And
okay.
so maybe Utah will be a good change,
We did
So
speculate last week about whether there were coyotes in Utah. Okay, and the game preserve, they will give you $50 for every verified coyote that you bring in, to have a bounty on the coyotes, because maybe they're overpopulated in Utah, especially maybe some of the urban districts, some of the suburban districts, things like that. So anyway,
yeah.
I know that's the update you weren't waiting for. There you go. You got it.
I appreciate that. I did live in Louisiana for a long time where I believe they had those about the nutria.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, oh,
everybody wanted to bring that in that nutria tale, so
oh, they're
I
so
get it.
so ugly. Uh, the
Okay.
other ugly story with the NHL, and I didn't.
Yeah,
I saw the clips only. Nick Jensen on the stretcher.
yeah.
Can you give an update on that or
The
describe what was
NHL
happening?
never ceases to terrify me with their perspective on medicine and I don't know, neurological health and all of those things. So this was a great reminder about how life-threatening hockey is, and it's truly amazing that this doesn't happen more often. But Jensen was actually checked into the boards and knocked out on his back. He did some weird hand movements, but nothing like Tua with, but still, like it was some strange posturing, and he was treated on the ice for 5 minutes before getting stretchered off the ice. They have to generally they're pretty careful about, stabilizing the neck
Mhm.
and all that good stuff. So, so they were doing all that. No penalty was actually called on the play, which to me is not a yeah, yeah, but you know what? Like when Stingley got knocked out, that was a clean play too. And so
True.
like
Yeah, you're right.
sometimes often, it's not the play, it's a freak accident that happened with a play, and so I'm not one of those people who gets real adamant about that, but I did think that that was interesting. And in the post-game update, we did find out that Jensen was able to walk out of the arena himself, which was impressive because he was not moving any of his limbs. Um, and what I did not find impressive, NHL, this is for you, he opted to go home and not the hospital, which is an awful idea. Okay, and the fact that they promoted that and, like, made it sound like that was a good thing, like that was a sign of progress is a no for me because, in case y'all didn't know, if there's a spinal cord injury, it can start. And you can't always see everything ahead of time. I don't know how much they did. You can only catch a brain bleed, for example, if it's really bad. And often there is not a brain bleed, even with a significant injury, but it doesn't always happen at once. So even if they did do some evaluations, I'm concerned about brain bleeds and I'm concerned about spinal cord swelling because it can cause permanent damage and it doesn't always show right away. Sometimes it takes time. That's why sometimes people have movement when they have an injury, but that goes away. Sometimes
Oh,
it can go the other way. But typically, when spinal injuries are treated early, that is when they recovery is more likely because they're aware. And so I'm not saying he had a spinal cord injury. I'm not saying he had a brain bleed, but I'm saying he was knocked out on the ice and had to get stretchered off after 5 minutes out there. So I think it's really worth a hospital trip and some evaluation. So the fact that they made that sound like it was a plus that he didn't have to,
mm,
what are y'all on over there? And then, like, they're like, "Oh," they're still denying that there's a causation between head trauma and, playing with hockey and CTE, like, grow up. So I have some issues with the NHL, as you can tell, but I am happy to hear
wow.
that he was able to leave the ice, was able to walk out of the arena. I
Mhm.
am not happy to hear he didn't go to the hospital. That is not the flex they thought it was. So, like, but I am glad that he's okay, at least for
Wow.
now. And in about 15 years, we'll hopefully see the signs for this. But anyway, I won't even go there with this one. But yeah, it was scary. It reminds us about what can happen. Sometimes we get a little comfortable and
Yeah.
we forget that this is a life and death sport, just like all the other sports we cover for the most part. Um, yeah, so that's my strong words for the NHL.
Okay. Uh, moving on to the fifth, the six pack. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the Max Holloway fight.
Yeah, so I watched this one. Um, and talk about that knockout that Holloway had against Justin Gaethje, right? Like he took the BMF uh what on earth is that word? Oh, I don't know, but he took it home. So he got his little that little thing that they wrap around there. Look, my partner is the UFC fan, but I watch it too. So anyway, he got his little belt. But it was one of the most outrageous KOs ever. That's what they're kind of going down. Not the clearest, they say, but one of the most outrageous. So from seeing it firsthand, there was like a flurry of punches. It was sort of like because it was in the very last seconds of the game, it was just kind of like whatever
Hmm.
lands, lands. And
Uh-huh.
so they were just kind of swinging on each other, and then one landed he connected with the side of Justin's cheek, and
Hmm.
he just went down. He ate that man. He went face first, and
Wow.
and then was down for an alarming period of time. And we almost had another Nick Jensen scenario on our hands, in my perspective. Yeah, knocked the F out and like stayed there. And the way he fell, just the positioning, just staying there, it was terrifying. They got him up pretty quick, but he didn't look right at all. His walk was not straight. So yeah, it was kind of terrifying. We all know Max Holloway is the OG. Everybody loves him. I believe he's from Hawaii, so he's repping America, you know. So like we all appreciate Holloway, but boy did he really establish who was boss, and in a terrifying turn of events. And we're also just glad that Gaethje appears to be okay. I will not do another lecture on long-term cognitive decline.
Wow.
Yes.
One last thing from the fight world. Zhang and Yang.
Yeah, Zhang and Yan. So they battled it out. That game that match happened right after the Max Holloway one. I did not make it to the final games because your girl is old and tired, but I did manage to stay up for this one. The fight was controversial because it appeared that Zhang actually choked out Yan and put her to sleep in the first round. Um, I don't know where the ref was. I just know that they weren't even there. Like usually they're there and they're like kind of like pounding the ground and kind of counting it out. I don't
Yeah.
know where this person was because they weren't even doing that. Like they were not even in the shot. Okay. And so like and look a cobra, like she snaked her arm around this woman and like you can just kind of see her like go soft, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Nick Jensen again. Like, are we gonna have to bring a stretcher out? And Shasir's like, no, it's fine. It's gonna be fine. Like she'll just wake up. And I'm like, what do you mean it's fine? But apparently that's
And
how.
they just kept the fight rolling.
Yes. And so like, even though it should have gotten called there, it wasn't. And so it went on. All I know is that she went to the sidelines, got yelled at by her team, and they shoved something up her nose with this finger so high. I thought that they were in her cranium. And and then she's just kind of like back out there. Like that didn't happen. I'm like, at least give her a second. I mean, she did get a nap, so I guess that was her break, but like, oh Lord. And so yeah, they played it to the end. And it was always going to be Zhang's. I think, especially after that. I mean, the game shouldn't have even kept going, but it did. But it was still going to be Zhang's, and she did win. And I will just say her end of win speech was unusual, and it ended with an advertisement. She did a compelling vacation pitch, encouraging everybody to visit China, which was not what I was expecting. But she got Travelocity. Like hire her because she was really serious about it and had lots of nice things to say, but like not the norm from what I've seen from after fight talks. But yeah, very surprising. I think primarily because of how badly the ref missed it, and then for them to continue playing. It was a wild night out there with UFC 300.
One last thing before we get into the PGA, which is our last segment. Was there another segment you want to put in here, or
I
anything?
think nothing's coming to mind, Jay.
Okay, well, can I throw in something about the UFL?
Yeah.
Okay. Watched the Showboats yesterday. And they didn't tease me this time. They just went straight out and lost immediately. They didn't tease me and give up 20 points in the fourth quarter like the week before.
Are you happy or sad about that, Jay?
They freed up some of my afternoon. It was I mean, it was so unusual. They not only freed up some of my afternoon, they did something I had not seen in a pro game ever. They freed up the afternoon for the starting quarterback that he was getting crashed on so badly, running for his life, that in a 15-point game, they pulled him. He'd been sacked 6 times in 3 quarters. And it could have been
did that for Russell Wilson.
they pulled him after 3 quarters. they just saw they had no chance in this game. And I want to give all shouts out and respect to Skip Holtz, who is apparently the goat of XFL, UFL, whatever uh, coaches, because the Stallions won the first and second year, and
Oh, the Stallions.
they looked like the best team by far. I mean, Memphis was 1-1. They should have won last week. They could have been 2-0 coming in, except they lost at the last minute. But Birmingham, from what I'd seen before, the week before, and then this week, they just looked totally unstoppable. And that defensive line, uh, we put our second string quarterback in. He got sacked twice in the fourth quarter. It was 8 sacks, and it literally could have been 15 if they hadn't just been throwing the ball into the stands. It was amazing defensive line work from Birmingham. They had
Yeah.
no chance out there.
Yeah, I covered the New Orleans Breakers last year with the USFL, and Birmingham was always destroying us and everyone else. They are a team in the wrong league, or a team for other teams to aspire to be, because
Yeah.
that is them. And every time I hear their name, it brings up a little anger in my heart. And whatever they're doing it well, because this is their MO, Jay.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about the fact that the level of play is good. I thought it would be upgraded a little bit more from last year, since they were taken down from 16 teams total in spring leagues to 8. It's upgraded a little bit, but it really stands out when a coaching matchup is just so one-sided. Like the defensive line coach just totally outwitted the offensive line coach for Memphis. Either they were really well scouted or else really outclassed as far as personnel, because they had no chance. And I see it in UFL games all the time, where um, they'll throw it to the same receiver over and over again, and they've got no answer for them. Or
Mm-hmm.
you'll see a run game of a team, they'll run it 20 times for maybe 12 yards because they've got no offensive line to go up against the linebackers. It really stands out one particular coaching matchup over the other, more so than even in a college game. And I'm going to look into that a little bit more to find out why that seems to be happening, to where you get in the second or the third quarter of a game, it's like a small sample size of an NBA game, and you see that one guy is like so dominant over another guy, and then you'll look up at the end of 3.5 quarters and he's got 40 on him. And it's like, I could see that happening 3 plays into the game.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot in the UFL that you don't see in the NFL. They always have a scheming answer. They always have a personnel matchup that they can change. But the UFL is so thin that if a person or a unit is dominant, it just really, by the second quarter, you're like, I can see exactly where this is going. That's kind of
There's a really big
dispiriting
skill
after 3
differential
weeks.
between, say, the top of one conference and the bottom of another, or the same. It's like night and day.
It is. It is. So anyway, I'm going to move on to our final topic for the day, which is the PGA Tour and Tiger Woods.
Yeah. So the Masters are happening. I know that's hot goss on Twitter, for example, and probably with our fans. And so, and Tiger is out there again setting records. He had 24 consecutive cuts, which is the most of all time put together. So there we go. And I'm gonna plug the only thing I knew about Tiger Woods. That article, it was amazing, that I did on the forkball. So make sure to see that, because then you can see how we almost lost Tiger Woods that one night, that fateful night. And that's about the only thing I ever knew about him growing up. And so, always good to recover those kind of memories. So now you have 2 articles that, homework assignments. OJ, he didn't. And the only thing I knew about Tiger Woods. But we love to see him still out there with, he's had some really serious, that car accident, really serious injuries. Right. He's not the youngest guy out there, and he's still out here setting records like he's as young as his son or something. So we'd love to see it. And we're hoping our Masters fans are here. I know that there's a little bit of other kind of quibbling amongst some of the PGA Tour people, some rescheduled breakfasts or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing more I like more than drama. So if you want to hear more about that, if you have thoughts about other things going on with the Masters, let us know. Let us know about any opinions you had on anything we discussed today. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, ding.
Yeah.
And we will be back as a full team next week. Although I don't think it's a stretch to say that our best members are here this week. Kidding, kind of.
Wow.
I know that our fans will appreciate that we're still here, holding it down. And so next week we'll have the full roster back, and we cannot wait to bring more sports news to you. So anything else you got, Jay, or are we gonna call that?
That's it. That's it. I had a great time chatting with you as always.
Always, yeah. Jay's my favorite person in general. So, like, always a good time. All right, we'll see you next week, everyone.